And this is Malite Kona in a place that calls Quote Atlantida. I finally decided to make my channel to share with you one of my biggest passions, horror and mystical stories, and also to practice my English. I will tell you about films and books that once surprised me with their unusual ideas, or touched my heart with their scenes, or simply scared me a lot. And now, when my squad is wrapped in soft December darkness, I want to introduce myself through brief talk about 3 of my favorite horror films. Why are they my favorites? Because I have never seen anything like them, not before and not after. Nothing else gave me the same impressions and emotions. And they have something in common. All their main heroines are beautiful women that found themselves inside a dark and natural and destructive reality. And first film I want to talk about is Suspiria 2018, directed by Luca Guadagnino. If you're also a fan of horror films like me, you probably know that this is a new interpretation of Dario Argento's 1977 film. The original is beautiful and legendary, but Guadagnino's Suspiria touched me much more deeply. I watched it in the cinema for the first time, and it was one of the most unforgettable movie experiences of my life. Since then, I rewatch it once a year at home in autumn. This is my personal tradition now. The film tells the story of a young American girl, Susie, who comes to West Berlin to study at a famous dance academy. But very soon it becomes clear that this school is not just a ballet company, but something much darker, more dangerous and much more ancient. The film features amazing actresses Dakota Johnson, Tilda Swinton, Mia Goth and Chloe Grace Moretz. From the very first shots, I was completely enchanted by its atmosphere, especially by the atmosphere of Berlin itself. I felt something painfully familiar in it, maybe because Berlin reminded me of my own city, Kharkiv, harsh, dark, but full of mystical energy. I instantly fell in love with the building of the dance academy where Susie comes to study. Honestly, I was drinking in every single frame with my eyes, and I had goosebumps all over my skin. Why did I love Suspiria so much? First of all, I really enjoyed the story itself. I was deeply interested in what was happening behind the scenes of this female creative collective, especially when those women are not exactly ordinary, and when the story unfolds in a horror setting. In general, this film has a very strong feminine vibe. The rehearsals, the everyday lives of the dancers and their teachers, the mysteries and the bloody horrors hidden behind the academy's walls, all of it is presented brilliantly. Then there is the unique style in which it is shot. I would call it the signature style of Luca Guadagnino. For me, this is experimental cinema, and in this case, a truly brilliant one. It feels like you are drifting between a cozy dream and an unsettling one, but you don't want to wake up. And Berlin of '77 has the same effect. It's as if you have fallen into something cold and unfriendly, yet you have no desire to leave. On the contrary, you want to explore it more because you like the way it makes you feel. You like what this place feeds you with. Suspiria is a mix of themes, ideas and images. An exquisite dish for a hungry imagination. I'm not going to analyze its meaning now, especially because, honestly, I'm not even sure I fully understood this film myself. But I love it with all my heart, and I sincerely recommend it to you if you haven't seen it yet. And second place in my personal top 3 horror films goes to It Follows 2014, starring Maika Monroe. That was the first time I ever saw Maika Monroe. She seemed so otherworldly, distant and unbelievably beautiful to me. Since then, I've been her fan, and when I see her at films, I look at her like this. The main character in It Follows is an ordinary young girl, Jay. She meets a guy, they get intimate, and after that she inherits a curse from him. A supernatural entity starts following her. This entity takes a different form every time, mostly human, and it just walks after her, slowly, constantly, in the same calm tempo. If it touches her, it's over, and this curse can be passed to another person through intimate contact. But if the entity touches and kills the person she passed it to, it will come back to her again. At first it sounds pretty simple. I didn't expect anything really scary from this film, but I watched it at night and I paused it several times because I was scared, which is very unusual for me. I usually watch horror films quite calmly. I was actually very close to peeing my pants out of fear. This film has a lot of cool details. From the slightly alternative world it takes place in, the gadget, clothes and interiors don't feel like our time and you can't really tell what decade it is, to the atmospheric synth music and the style of 80s horror films. But what stayed with me the most was the different forms in which the entity appeared to the main character. The creators have an incredible imagination. They gave the audience such a strange puzzle, making us guess what the thing really is and what it represents. Shame, death, time. When I rewatched this film recently, I noticed how much it is filled with the theme of water and the sea. The main heroine is often near water, a swimming pool, a lake, images of waves, and at some point I felt like this entity behaves like water, not like a demon from hell, but like something flowing, ancient, as if it's not really it following us, but the water itself, still coming after us after we once came out of it. But okay, I think I went a bit too far. Today I don't find It Follows as scary as it was for me for the first time, but for me it still remains the most stylish horror film I ever seen, and just like Suspiria it feels like a gift for fans of aesthetic and unconventional horror. And the third place in my personal top 3 horror films goes to Spring 2014 by Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead. They're really cool guys. They're strong in atmospheric horror and philosophical sci-fi. I like almost everything they make, but Spring touched me the most. The film begins with the main character Evan, a young American losing his mother after a painful illness. He's going through grief, and basically nothing is holding him home anymore. Then there is a conflict in a bar, problems with the police, and he decided he needs to leave for a while. He randomly chooses Italy. In Italy he finds work on a farm in exchange for food and a place to stay. And one evening, while walking around the town, he meets a bright Italian woman named Louise. He really likes her, tries to get closer, but she keeps her distance. And soon he finds out why. What impressed me most in Spring is the idea of who Louise really is. I won't give spoilers, I'll just say that her way of surviving is truly fascinating. It's a body horror film rooted in pagan themes, but presented as science fiction. Spring is a tight knot where several genres are intertwined. First of all, it's a drama. Evan's sadness, loneliness, and life uncertainty seep through the whole film and make it very grounded. Secondly, it's a melodrama. The love story between Evan and Louise is the main and central line, and only then body horror and sci-fi. The film literally juggles these states. If while watching Susie in Suspiria or Jane It Follows I felt fear and discomfort, with Louise I felt something different, jealousy. Jealousy of her unique nature and way of life, of the place where she lives, and in the end I felt jealousy because she receives love, something that is truly not easy to find in real life. The film is very beautiful, emotional, and a little like a dark fairy tale, and if you give it one evening, I think you won't regret it. That's all for this first video. Thank you very much for listening. Soon I'll talk more about atmospheric horror films. Wait for the next transmission from Squad Atlantida.